Women are so fucking cool.
Hey, today's guest on Women Are So Fucking Cool is a woman that I met many years ago when I was living in New York City. And a lot of the women that I do talk to are women that I met in New York. And I have a special place for all the women that I've met, the fucking cool women. But as somebody who had a dream to move to New York and she made it happen, it just has a real special place in my life. And it is the birthplace of the FCW Society. The video was made in Chicago, but the society did start in the East Village of New York City. But my guest today, I digress, is artist, photographer, writer, doodler, just all around fucking cool woman, Flash Rosenberg. And I am Joanne Morton. I am the host and the founder of the Fucking Cool Women Society, an organization that respects, encourages, and celebrates fucking cool women and the people they love. And we are everywhere. And this podcast is a way for us to get an inside there's point of view of a fucking cool woman, as well as getting a zip zap of positive energy from us because my gosh, these episodes that I've been recording have just been so inspiring, and I hope you're enjoying them. And if you are enjoying them, please share a comment, share the podcast, talk about it, and let people know and do all that good stuff. So I really appreciate that. We all do. But this episode is going to really just be fascinating. I talked to her about her own ideas of what an FCW is. She talks about her star as an artist, and and her voice. I just love Flash's voice. It's just so calm, and she is an artist living her life on her terms, and she's navigating it with grace and sense of humor, and she's really letting herself be seen. And I just think that's so fucking cool. So let's go listen to what Flash has to say. Oh, well, I am once again with another fucking cool woman, and I'm deeply honored and grateful that Flash Rosenberg has the time to talk to me again. She's got a busy week. But as I said in the opening, the intro, I met her many years ago, and I told you this earlier, but I really am grateful that I got to meet so many fucking cool women artists when I was living in New York, and you were definitely one of the first ones that really
Thank you.
gave me that permission that I could be, the artist that I am. So thank you for that.
But who you wanted to meet was who we all should be meeting among each other. And you were an amazing connector and bridge and enthusiast and facilitator to make that happen, which is more important because we might have all been in our own little nook doing something, but it took your energy and your innocence. You weren't doing this for attention or for anything other than it was a truth that you felt so soulfully and shared so generously. And that's something that I was so struck by. And, in a way, it wasn't as much the organization I was interested in, but I wanted to support you. And I think that's how anybody becomes a leader and gets things accomplished.
I really agree with you. That's very, very profound. It's very profound. Well, we are here because we want to talk about what it means to be a fucking cool woman at FCW and what is a definition of a fucking cool woman. So I would love to hear your definition of what it means to be a fucking cool woman.
Well, for me personally, it means I mean, I don't make it any more complicated than the advice that Glinda the Good Witch had when something wicked was in her kingdom. And when somebody tries to say something mean or try to boss me or tell me that I'm wrong, when I have a conviction that I'm on the right track, I just say to them, you have no power here. In my mind, I don't have to say it out loud. And being cool is not, for me, boasting about being cool. It's an essence you have so that people want to be around you. So I'm less likely to be announcing it, but very likely to be inhabiting it. And I think that that's another division, so that I don't need to march around. I want to tiptoe around and do things with great intention and good works. And I also do this as a way of honoring something that my rabbi told me when I was growing up. Because I asked him once, I said, why am I learning Hebrew? If there's a God and he invented English, or she, wouldn't they understand any language that was in my brain or in my mouth? Why would I have to learn another language? He says, it's not about learning Hebrew. It's not even about prayers. He says, the way you give thanks for the abilities you have is that you have to do those things when called upon. And that is how I've tried to live my life.
I like that. Yeah, I really like that. It's about being, right?
Yeah.
Be who
And
you want in the world.
right. And having the freedom to not be cool, because being cool sometimes is dismissive or harmful or competitive and trying to get attention. What I'm trying to do is be the kind of woman who is not jealous or superior. Whenever I've had incidents, let me put it that way, with difficulty with people I've had to work with or have known, it's because they were jealous and superior. So therefore, I could never be good enough, and they were resentful of how good I was doing something. And once you can be warned about that, you can just get on with it and wish them well and not have everything be a battle. The other thing I think that has helped me in understanding what it means for me personally to be a fucking cool woman is to take time off from having an opinion and having a judgment. I do this because I have earned a living as a documentary photographer, shooting stills at galas and bar mitzvahs and weddings. And it's really just jobbing out the skill set. But I also like it that I can go and say, I don't have to have an opinion about this. Let's see what the humans are doing. And to have a consciousness that you're setting aside insult or frustration, and to try to understand another way a person is so that you can then address them and perhaps bring them to a more a deeper and more kind and less kooky awareness without even making them know that's what you're trying to do when commenting.
Yeah, that's again, again, it's like, oh my goodness, it's so true. Every time I have these conversations, I what I hear from your mouth is just, it's such a maturity, like emotional maturity and intellectual maturity. It just makes sense, and it just makes things simple too. Complicated, I mean, these are like they're not complicated issues because we don't need to make them complicated. And I really respect what you're saying about being how cool can be very competitive. And that's where, when I was thinking about, what is the definition of fucking cool? It's really those we don't fucking care kind of fucking cool. We just are, because we walk our talk. We show up for each other.
I'm trying to think of solutions, not exclamations. And so that to me is what's really cool. And also, I come from a time when women weren't expected to do very much besides be teachers, secretaries, or nurses.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember turns out I was allergic to photo film chemistry, and I was the photo lab supervisor in college. And I went to a dermatologist who said, well, don't worry about it. In another year, you'll be married and you won't be doing photography anymore, and you won't be putting your hands in the chemistry. And I'm like, what? And then when I was about 21, turns out I was photo editor of Delaware Today magazine. And I looked about 12 at the time. And so I would show up for jobs and everyone would say, where's the real photographer? Meaning the guy. Now, the good thing was I was a laughing feminist. And I think that may be my definition of what it means to be fucking cool, is to be able to laugh in order to dissipate some of the tension and help inform somebody. Because if they're laughing, the information can get in them quicker. And so I would say I'm it. that was it. And I started dressing up to go do photo events because all the women photographers I knew at that time, and I'm still in Delaware at that moment, they were in New York or in Philadelphia, and they dressed like miniature men. They had denim jackets and jeans, or they wore tuxedos. I thought, I'm a full-grown woman, and a pretty big one, at least at the time. And I mean, in terms of height, and I thought, if I dressed up more like David Bowie to go shoot these things, people said, well, she must be here for something because she's not part of what's going on. And always knowing that I'd be the observer observed, and that you can be a lot of both, and that was a way of coping as a way to be cool, to remain calm when somebody's trying to upset or insult.
Yeah, I think that, and I think when you're trying to find solutions, you do have to observe to see what the solutions could work for sure. You have a very awesome, amazing career that I want to explore at some point more. But how, I'd love to hear some of your examples of how, when you've been working with other collaborators, and how you have found when you work with women, how it can flow, like what shows up. Because I know you're doing a something later this week with another FCW we talked about. But what why is it kind of important to kind of gather your collaborators and be mindful of who you're collaborating with to move you forward? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think I'm less of a collaborator than you may envision because I'm not in theater where you really have an ensemble that has to do something. As a visual artist, you're kind of in charge of what it is you make mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And that I might work with someone who has an intersecting talent that I need. Let's say somebody curates a performance show. I need their organizational skills to get the place, do the stuff, do the promotion. I write the piece. I'm part of the performer. So it looks collaborative, but like every piece in the jigsaw puzzle has its own image. I mean, and yet together we make the whole picture. So I think that's more of the kinds of collaboration I've done. Because so I'm trying to think, like, when you teach, they'll tell you what you have to cover. And then I figure out how I'm going to cover it in a way that makes everybody fall in love with the subject as much as I do, so that they'll want to do it. I don't want to instruct. I want to sort of create challenges. Like I taught a class that took place, it was a class in perception studies for Cooper Union that took place entirely on the New York City subways. Because what I liked is that everybody's in the subway looking like they're completely bored. Ooh, and everybody knows exactly what's going on. If something gets upset, boom, we're all tuned in. We may know not to look, but what I liked about that class was that everybody had to observe things and then communicate what they experienced in drawing or photographs or an essay or a collage or whatever it is, so that the artwork I do is thought centric, not tool centric. So it's not that I teach camera or I teach pencil or I teach, multimedia. It's like, what do we need to do to best get across an idea? And so I guess collaboratively, that just means being able to identify who can do what I don't know to do as well, and how I can communicate that with them. Like when I worked with my brother as a musician and we did a soundtrack to a film, I don't write music. I can't even invent songs, but because he's my brother and we speak from the same texture of perceiving things from growing up together, I would say I need the sound of an ant marching on terry cloth eating a saltine, and he would make the sound effect for that. So I think collaboration for me is really just figuring out how to talk to people in a way that they understand the challenge and finding the solution as fun. Because fun is a real part. I mean, I'm a fun, cool woman more than a fucking cool woman. And I think that people could come up with different interpretations for the letters, because the FCW just sounds good. It just sounds like we're on the planet and we're for real.
I 100%. Yes, we're fabulous. We're fantastic.
Finicky.
We're fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're funky.
Feisty. Yeah.
Yeah, fiery, Uh,
Blubbering. I mean, I think that some of the times when I've most messed up is when I've most understood something else to do. It's the way it works in drawing very often. You make a mistake and then you turn that mistake into something that's part of the drawing. Mostly because I'm a little bit lazy too. And that also creates solutions. Like if I can do something easier, then my laziness in quotes is a virtue. Like I'm trying to figure out a more capable or efficient way of doing something.
very smart. Say so for me. I'd like to hear who are some of the FCWs fucking cool that you've met in your life or who have inspired you?
Well, what I like most about what you organized is what inspired me are the people that I know who have affected me the most. My mother was one of the coolest people who affected me because she was guileless. She didn't even know that she was as funny as she was. And part of her doing funny things and me noticing what she was doing enabled me to have my sense of humor, I think. Like I'll give you an example. When computers first came out, she really wanted to be helpful. They did not yet have computer stores. They were selling the gear in the auto supply shops because that was a place where gear was sold. And my mother went marching up to the counter and said to the salesman, "Excuse me, sir, I need an urge suppressor for my husband." Because she didn't know it was a surge suppressor. And to this day, I call every type of those electronic safety things, urge suppressors. And of course, the guy at the counter said, "Well, congratulations, madam. What a lucky person you are that you need an urge suppressor." And so things like that. But I've sort of lost the question, but who I admire. I
Yeah.
mean, um, I mean, there's a woman in my neighborhood in Harlem who organizes everybody to plant things in the median strip along Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. I admire my sister who does. We're very, very different, but I love her so dearly. So you don't have to be similar to somebody to love them. I had we were the three best friends. I've lost one of them, but she was the first Black news anchor for NBC News in Philadelphia. And she just had such a good attitude about how to get people to open up and to talk to them. And another friend who did ads, and she did them with great humor. I've had my friend Cheryl King, who does these amazing shows called Forbidden Kiss, which is like these erotic shows that are wholesomely erotic as performance pieces. I mean, there's so many. I have a friend who has twin autistic sons, and what she's done to make their lives be more understandable by using the gifts she has as an artist in order to invent what needs to be invented. I have a friend who's now in her 90s. She put out her first book of poetry at age 80. My friend Dorothea Schur. I think about my cousins, anybody who's like, I like relatives because they're like a variation on you, even when they're really different. That to me is very cool. And I mean, I think that I look around all the time for who is inspiring me because each person has something unique because of their confabulation and concoction of experiences to learn from. And if you see it that way, your coolness brings out their coolness and everybody's together in becoming more empathetic and more successful and kinder.
I couldn't have said it any better. Yeah, it is. It's that sharing it with you, creating that energy back and forth.
Your
Yeah.
screen is frozen. Is
So
this my computer or is this yours?
might have, it could be mine or yours, but mine's 3 bars again.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we're getting a storm down here. Sometimes when it storms in Savannah. Yeah. Wow. That was really, the empathy. How do we bring all that in? So, and before we started talking on recorded version, we were talking about the respect, encourage, and celebrate. And you brought up what would 3 other words would another woman identify as part of the manifesto of the FCW Society, which I
Well,
wanted
I
to
just
say
say,
you were one of the original ones when we started it, but I'd love you. I know I just threw that out at you. So no, You could always say something
Well,
else.
I love that it was deep and meaningful, and there was a membership card. I mean, I just thought that was to have that in a wallet back when we carried wallets with lots of cards to be members. I was a member of the Pretzel Club and Fucking Cool Women Society. And I mean, then I got a membership in a drugstore so you could get a discount. That was like the last great era of membership cards. Now everything's digital, but that was really fun. I just thought empathy, like whenever we had our brunches, even from the very beginning, we cared about how everybody else was doing. And then we also were networking, but not in that officious way that it now seems to be, like link. Okay.
Okay. Where were we at? I love where you were going. So you were going about how the early brunches, the networking.
Yeah, I don't think the word networking was even a word yet. I mean, we were just getting together to see how we can help each other, which to my mind is something that was very much a quality of New Yorkers. You know, the people think we're rude, but we're just efficient. And that, in fact, you're always thinking about who else should you meet? What else can you do? How can I help? And that is so much part of the spirit, where when I was living in other places, I don't want to condemn anywhere because I actually love everywhere I've ever lived. But people say, are you done with your work now so we can go out and have a drink? It wasn't, what else can we do today to move forward toward completing, or accelerating your ambition? And ambition was not a nasty word. It just meant that I wanted to be effective. And that's how I can give thanks for being here in this life and being able to do. So I'll do flyers for the community on canva.com and take photos for people who may not otherwise get portraits at some certain event. I take pictures for the Block Association. And I mean, the problem is that because I'm happy doing it all, people assume I don't need money. I don't know why happiness translates to not needing money, because we all need money.
Uh-huh. We do. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, exactly. We need to all need to be monetized for our skills and talents. Definitely. Oh, wow. I really am just really in awe of, just following your way of thinking. Okay, I'm going to edit all this part out. Okay. So.
No, don't worry about it. No, I want to say, in terms of other people that I admire, I often admire when I go in and there's somebody. For 7 years, I was artist in residence at the New York Public Library, where I drew conversations between authors to make ideas visible. They were not caricatures. As a child, I hated caricatures because I did not want somebody making fun of something I already knew was wrong with me. So I was never going to perpetrate caricatures on the world, even though it would be a good skill to have, to just see a face and be able to stretch it and make it still look like that person and be able to make fun of them. But I want to make fun with people, not of people, even though there are certainly a number of people who need to be made fun of. But I always liked or was more attracted to the people who were helping. Like some of the authors who came were so full of themselves, like they were too important to know everybody. I thought, God, to become too important just seems like you've not understood the game. And the game is to really have friends of all ages, and have an understanding of people who are different than you. Figure out that I'm making mistakes all the time in how it is I interact, but I want to learn more about how to better understand another way of being. And that's, to me, the theater of life. People often ask me, where do you perform your comedy? I go, wherever I am. Like I was in the dressing room once trying on this wildly bright orange and black shag carpet looking coat. And some woman had a little red blazer on. She goes, do you think this is too loud? I said, you're asking me. Might be okay.
So as we close this podcast, what I want to do is just ask you one more. What would you like to close? What message would you like to share with the world as the fucking cool woman that you are?
Oh, gosh. I mean, there's so many. So to pick out one, editing is not my virtue. I'm a jabberer and an inclusive kind of person. But I kind of go back to my favorite song of all time, which is the Beatles song Blackbird. That it's singing in the dead of night. You take your broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you're waiting for this moment to arise. And that whatever is coming your way, figure out that you have been preparing for it and you'll deal with it. I had many things go wrong kind of at the height of when I thought I was going to be able to make a breakthrough. There was a flood, there was death, I had to move. I mean, there was just so many things. And even on the worst day of my life, it was still funny. Maybe that's more of the thing, is look for what's funny when it's still not funny. Not to be disrespectful of what it is, but I'll give you an example. I had to move from a loft that I loved beyond belief in Midtown. I was forced out. The building was sold, and they were going to put gates on it and bring in the marshals. I had to move. I couldn't go home to see my father, who was dying. As the moving truck pulls out from the place, the only thing I need to do is get in the subway, meet the truck so it can unload in the new place in central Harlem. While the truck is pulling out at 10 a.m., I get the call from my sister that my father has just passed. I'm a wreck. I've been awake for days. I'm on the subway. There was an assignment from the subway thing of the weirdo on the train or the day I was the weirdo. If nobody looks weird, it might be your turn. Everybody's backing away from the sobbing woman riding the subway in her overalls, getting ready to move. And I'm there and I'm on the phone. The movers are bringing the stuff in. I very clearly labeled all the boxes. But at the very moment the rabbi asks me, "And where would your father like to be buried?" The moving guy says, "Hey, lady, where do you want this box?" And I go, "In the kitchen." And the rabbi goes, "In the kitchen?" I said, "I think my dad would like to be buried in the kitchen." And I went, "Oh my God, the worst day of my life." And it's still funny. To just have a perspective that is circuitous so that you can see things from a number of angles, like almost to see things in stereo. I know how things should go conventionally, but I also know another way to do almost anything. And as you can see, I have a home that follows my sense of interior design, which is take everything you own and put it where you live. The end.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you for the attention and the encouragement and for all the work that you do to bring us together and continue this on a larger scale. But even if you did it for one other person, there's a term I like in Judaism called dayenu. It would have been enough. And yet you keep doing it and enlarging it and including more people and growing and understanding more clearly how it can best impact and affect and do good for others so that together we have power. I think that's the important thing about fucking cool women is that it's plural, that together I'm not a fucking cool woman. I'm a woman with all of us. And who you bring together, who you encourage to have the kind of thoughts that you have sort of yanked out of me is a terrific gift. And I thank you for that.